Hey there, welcome. Happy Wednesday, everyone. And I am so excited to be here on this beautiful August day in Arkansas. As we've got like fall like weather and we're loving it here. So I hope it's beautiful wherever you are. And if you would like to drop in the chat and let us know where you are tuning in from, I am going to check real quick to make sure that we are fully connected. Looks like we're connected now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So good to go there. So let's do some introductions. What before we do that, let me just do some quick housekeeping though. If you are joining me from Facebook, real important that you that is not the one I want to put up there. That you go to StreamYard and let Facebook and StreamYard have permission to speak with each other. So it's streamyard.com/Facebook. Got it down here for you. And if you have already done that on the device for which you're on, no big deal. You don't need to do it again. Um, if you don't do it, it's just going to say Facebook user if you leave us a message. So we're not going to be able to call you by name. So that is my favor to ask. And let's have some introductions. If I'm new to you and you are new to me, um, I want to tell you I am Beverly Smith and I am the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm also the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm. So I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for. I use that knowledge now to help my clients who are mid, senior, and executive level professionals. I help them build their resumes. We help them with their LinkedIn branding, and we also help them with their job search strategies, all so they can land the career of their dreams. So last week, we talked with my friend and wellness expert, Kristen Lippincott, about how to keep a healthy work-life balance or work-life harmony going when you are a high achiever, when you are working in a demanding role. And it was really, she had so many great tips. So I want to encourage you that if you missed that, you can go back to my YouTube channel. It's right there at Beverly Smith Resumes. All my replays are there and they are underneath the live tab. So go check that one out. It was a great episode. Again, we just had a really good conversation, a lot of good information that I think, especially when you're working in those demanding roles, you're going to find really useful. But this week, I want to tell you about my guest. We have Dr. Sonia Green returning to the show. And some of you may remember that she was here back, I believe it was in April, and we talked about imposter syndrome. And if you miss that, you can go over to my YouTube channel and find that episode. It was really a very interesting conversation, very helpful. And I am bringing Sonia back to talk all about perfectionism. But let me first introduce her and tell you a little bit about her. Dr. Sonia Green spent 31 years as a university professor and an administrator teaching in universities across the South and the Mid-Atlantic. In 2019, has worked, or since 2019, she has worked as a certified coach, and she helps high-achieving women across the country drop their imposter syndrome and earn promotions as well as change careers. And so, in addition to her one on one coaching, Sonia also leads workshops. She teaches organizational teams how to take care of themselves so that they can be happier and have a more productive team and environment there at work. And she is also currently writing a book in collaboration with John Britt, and it is called Putting the Me in Team. And so, real excited for that to roll out. Sonia, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to it.
So, let's dive in, and I want to talk about how perfectionism manifests itself in high achieving professionals and why it can in particular be detrimental to career growth.
Yeah. So I want to say two things about this. First, I want to say for the people who say, well, I I want perfection, but it's not in an unhealthy way. There is such a thing as healthy striving, okay? And I
Mhm,
think a lot of high achieving people have that sense of healthy striving where they want to do their best, they want to perform their best, and it may not be at that level of perfectionism. So remember that if you hear perfectionism and you're like, I'm a perfectionist and it's okay, it doesn't hurt me, then maybe it's just healthy striving. The
mhm,
way that you can tell generally if this is healthy striving or if this is perfectionism and maybe causing you some problems, maybe even problems you haven't identified yet, and we'll talk about that later, is that sense of, are you in a position where you're judging a lot? And when I say judging, I mean not just judging yourself,
mhm.
because there is that sense of you judging yourself as not good enough that often comes up in people with perfectionism. But also, perfectionists tend to judge other people with I guess maybe an unfair measuring stick. So if
Mhm.
you see yourself judging yourself or maybe just judging other people, then there's a good chance that you are dealing with perfectionism. So
Mm.
that I wanted to make that clear first, because many times people are they get defensive when you attack their perfectionism. Well, I'm just careful. I just care about my job. And yeah, if you're focused internally and it's giving you energy, then that is healthy striving. Then you want to do that all day long. But if you're judging other people, if you're looking outward and wondering what other people are thinking about you, or you're always thinking about other people, that's probably taking your energy, and that's perfectionism.
Oh, such a good point. And I think too, when you talk about energy, um, probably a good way to distinguish that is when it ignites you and you feel really good about what you're doing versus that, that kind of that tension in your
Yeah.
body where it's stressful and things like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And many times, especially high achieving clients that I work with, they don't know. They're like, I'm not feeling good. But at the same time, they don't want to let go of the fact, well, I just care about my job.
Hmm.
And the truth is, it's all about what you just said. If it's energizing you, then it's working positively in your life. If it is pulling you down, when you really stop and think about it and sit with it for a moment, then we probably need to have a conversation about why that's happening and if your perfectionism could be going a little too far. Because
Yeah.
most people are going to experience it at some point in their lives. And I like to think about perfectionism on a continuum rather than it just being this one thing. Most of us are going to come in somewhere on that continuum at some point in our lives.
Mm,
And it's
yeah.
all about that energy.
Yeah, yeah. Can you give us some examples of like how that can affect your career growth?
Yeah. So uh, Brene Brown talks about perfectionism as being a 20-ton shield. And she says that we use it to try to protect ourselves. We want to show that we're doing good work. We want to be the best we can be. We're trying to protect ourselves from the judgment of others. Again, that sense of judgment. But what
Mhm,
we typically tend to do is hide. And that's one of the ways that I see it coming up in my clients. So instead of giving their best work and doing their best work, they draw back and try to hide themselves.
mm,
Um, Interestingly, one of the biggest ways that we see this is with procrastination. And
mm,
most people don't think about procrastination as part of perfectionism, it seems like just the opposite. But a lot of times when we're procrastinating, we're actually protecting ourselves.
Mm,
Because if I keep putting it off, if I have a report due, let's say, and I keep putting it off, then I do it at the last minute and turn it in. Well, I already know it wasn't my best work.
mm,
So I'm giving you something that wasn't my best work. And if you come to me and say, Sonia, this has some real problems, I can say, I know, everything came up. I put it off to the last minute and I am protecting myself. If I
mm,
give you my best work and you come to me and you say, Sonia, this has real problems, well, then I have opened myself up, right? I am not good
wow.
enough.
Mhm,
So procrastination is one of those examples that I see often in high achieving women and men who
mhm.
are trying to protect themselves from not finding out they're not good enough, because that's the underlying fear with
Yes.
perfectionism. They want to be good enough. And that's why I think I mentioned back in the spring when I was with you that perfectionism and imposter syndrome are like BFFs or sisters. They are
Yes,
right
you
there
did.
together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
both
that
come in
is
at
so
different ways.
good. Truly, yes. And I also think what would your response be to someone that will say to you, because they are so used to putting things off to the last minute that they just think that they do their best work when they're under pressure. How do you
Yeah.
respond to
I
that?
may have been one of those people at one time,
Me too.
or at least I know somebody. Yeah, the
Asking
truth
for a
is
friend.
the truth is we don't know.
Yeah.
We are robbing ourselves if that's our belief. We are robbing ourselves of ever knowing what our true potential is,
Wow.
right?
Hmm.
Because if that's the belief that you work under, and I was like, oh, I'm better under pressure. The less time I have, I know exactly how much time it takes. But I don't know what I could have done if I had given myself a week or two to work on
Mhm.
something and then turn it in and maybe get feedback on it and revise it and make it even better. Who knows? I mean, it could have been awesome. But if I could get, and mine specifically was when I was in college. I did
Mhm.
that a lot with papers that I was writing and things. But who knows? I never really saw what my true potential was because I didn't try it any other way.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree, and I kinda did the same thing too, and I can think of a couple of occasions when I didn't, and how much better I felt about the
Yeah.
circumstance and how much more prepared I
Yeah.
felt, and then but that didn't continue on. It took me much later, like now as an adult, I
Right.
really I usually don't put things off.
Mhm.
I kind of got myself into a little something over the weekend and found myself actually putting off preparing the stuff for this event. And it was really, I was like, I have a rhythm that I like to do things in, and I don't like to do it the day before. Now I had plenty of time. It's not like I was just creating all this 5 minutes ago or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But having that rhythm gives me that grace period to go back and tweak things if I need to, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit. I can repeat this again later, but you know, we all do things where we get out of our rhythm sometimes. And I'm like you. I have learned the same. When I went back to do my PhD, I had two small children. So procrastinating was not in the game plan at all because there was a good chance it didn't get done if I procrastinated. And I never felt imposter syndrome or perfectionism, but I did feel much more prepared. So if you find yourself falling back into a routine that you used to do and then you got over it, just get curious. Why did I do that?
Mhm.
What changed? It's nothing to judge ourselves for. It's just something to get curious about and try to figure out, what was it about this weekend? What was it about this event that I wanted to, I didn't want to do in my usual routine that works for me?
That's such a good way to look at it because
Mhm.
it's also, I think instead of going, "Oh," and beating ourselves up, "Oh, I failed at this, and I really made the mistake there," it's more of when you're curious, it opens you up to
Yes.
see better solutions. What could I do better?
Yeah.
And how could I have handled that differently? What could I have done differently? Those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. It kind of prepares you for the next time.
Yeah.
Again, that beating ourselves up can be kind of a protection
Mm.
mechanism, like the
Mhm.
procrastination. Nobody else needs to do it because I'm going to be my harshest critic. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, really, that does kinda shield you because 'cause you're like, "Okay,
Uh-huh.
whatever you say is not gonna hurt me because 'cause I'm gonna be a lot worse to
Exactly.
myself."
Exactly.
I wanna ask you next about, um, how perfectionism can affect decision making or risk taking, especially, like, in leadership roles.
Yeah. It can really derail leaders at times, especially when they get externally focused on what are other people thinking. I've got to do this just perfectly because everybody's watching me.
Mm,
Um, so again, it can make us hide our true selves. We can make small decisions. We can make safe decisions rather than making decisions that lead to real growth in those
mm,
situations. Um, Alternatively, it can sometimes go in the opposite direction and we hide our true selves. We protect our true selves with our perfectionism and we try to make decisions that we have seen other leaders make or that have worked for other people. And
mm.
so we try to put on this persona of, well, I'm going to be tough about this. I'm going to draw a line in the sand and make this decision when that doesn't fit into our integrity at all. It doesn't feel right within us, but I've seen other people do it and I want to do it as well as they do. So I'm going to copy what they do.
Mm.
And so again, we're hiding from our true selves. We're hiding what we really think is the best response in the situation. And, it doesn't always work out really well.
Right, right. So you're almost like being inauthentic with yourself,
Absolutely.
and I feel like when you're not being your true self, your team is gonna see through that, or
Yes.
anyone that reports to you is
Yeah.
going to see through that, which is actually going to cause a lack of respect when you're trying to be something that you're not. And even though maybe Sonia, you do it this way and it works really well for you, but when I come in and
Mhm.
try to do it that way, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It makes me think back to I think something that Kristen said last week, and I can't remember if this was actually on the show or if it was off camera, but we had this conversation about how when she took over in a former position, how everything worked better when she went and changed it, not because the other person was doing it wrong. It just didn't feel right for her. And
Yeah.
when she changed it, it was like they experienced growth as a department and things worked better, but it fit more, was more authentic to her.
Yes, exactly. And that's when you are being inauthentic, when you're not in integrity with yourself, you are constantly second guessing. You're constantly trying to figure out, okay, if this is the outcome, how am I going to tackle this? Because it's not the way that you know to be true. And so
Hmm.
many parts of leadership there aren't right and wrong ways to do them.
Yeah.
There's different paths. And if you're on, I don't want to sound like I'm in the woo or anything like that, but the truth is, if you're making decisions true to yourself, things that you believe are the right things to do, and this is the logical outcome, and this is how I want to handle these situations, then you are going to experience growth because your team is going to respect that. They're going to
Mhm.
understand that you're making the best decision that you make for them. And if it doesn't work, if you step up and say, "Hey, I thought this was going to work. I'm going to try something else," and
Mhm.
have that authentic discussion with them, you're much more likely to experience growth.
Absolutely.
It's hard to use somebody else's playbook.
Yeah, you can learn from them, but exactly if it doesn't feel right for you or your situation, sure. I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
In teaching, that happened all the time. But as a department chair and as a writing program director, I was over lots of different instructors and professors. And even if they, let's say for a writing class, everybody used the same textbook, I never told them how they should teach the class. I never told them, you have to teach this and then you teach this, because
mhm.
their strengths might have been something completely different.
Mm,
Leadership is the same way. We lead with our strengths. We lead to our strengths, and we talk to our strengths. So if you have that kind of belief in your people, you give them that kind of freedom. Give yourself that kind of freedom too. What are your
yeah.
strengths?
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Really good. I wanna move on next and talk a little bit about how the fear of failure plays into perfectionism, and then also not only that, but be learning to overcome that, how that can affect growth in your career.
Yeah. So fear of failure is something that it's cultural for us. And I think we don't often think about perfectionism in this way, but we have been culturally trained to have a sense of scarcity, to have a sense of fearing failure,
Mhm,
because that's what keeps us striving, right?
mhm,
If I'm worried that if I want the next big thing, I want the next big car or big house, or I'm worried that I won't have this job tomorrow, then I'm going to keep striving.
mhm,
And culturally, there's both good and bad sides to that. But if we realize that we are culturally trained to have that scarcity mindset, that fear of failure, then that can take away some of the shame that goes with it.
mhm.
Because most people, when they're feeling those things, they have a healthy dose of shame riding along with them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so if we realize that we're all just existing in this cultural training that we've had from the beginning,
Mhm,
there's nothing wrong here. In fact, things are happening exactly the way our culture has set us up to think they should go, then it can take off some of the pressure. Um, in the moment, it's hard to believe that. But if we and say, "Hey, I have this awareness that nothing's gone wrong here. Not only am I feeling this way, but that person over there has felt that way. That person over there has felt that way. We've all felt that way. Most of us, anyway,
mhm.
um, have felt that way at some point." Then it can help. And we're actually going in the wrong direction right now. There's been a couple of studies that have come out lately telling us that this sense of perfectionism um, is skyrocketing, especially in younger people who are going to be the future of our workforce. Um, and a lot of that is happening because we have become even more externally focused with
Mhm.
social media. with reality TV, with seeing others like we think they live. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to say that, oh, I know that's all made up. I know we're only seeing the best of them in those pictures. But when we have a steady diet of that,
Mm-hmm.
then the reality is our brains start to think, I need that. I want that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing good enough if I'm not achieving that. Whatever
Yeah.
that is. I mean, it's really kind of vague what it even is. But we're going in the wrong direction right now. But I think having that sense of awareness that this is cultural and it has been taught to me not intentionally, because it was taught to our parents
Mm-hmm.
unintentionally, maybe our grandparents, depending on what generation you are. There's a long history of this.
Right. Yeah.
To have that awareness and cut back on some of that diet that especially I think younger people are on. But even for me, if I'm scrolling
Mhm.
through Instagram, looking at all these coaches talking on Instagram, watching these reels, looking at the perfect words they're saying and they look perfect, it's easy for me to think that, well, I'm not that perfect, and my background doesn't look like that, and I'm not wearing clothes that, I mean, it is,
Yes. Yes.
you find
Yeah.
yourself drawn into that. So, stepping back from that is one thing, but the other thing to remember is that this is a practice. This moving out of perfectionism has been taught to us, or moving into perfectionism has been taught to us our whole lives,
Mm-hmm.
unintentionally, but there's that undercurrent our whole lives, and we're not going to get over it just in 5 minutes or five
Right.
days or maybe 5 years. You know, if you've spent 40, 50 years being trained a certain way, you're not just going to turn it over. It's a practice. And so,
Mm-hmm.
one of you asked about things that we could do to get over it. One really uncomfortable thing for a lot of people, but it's one of the first steps, is to say, hey, I am going to give myself permission to do B minus work.
Mm.
Now, this really hits, as a former professor, this hits me because we are in an era of great inflation and every student wanted the A, and I had all kinds of emails that would come in around finals of things I can do for extra credit, and can you just round my grade up and all of these things. But B minus work, if you think about it, it's not failing. A
Mm-hmm.
B minus would be an 80, an 82.
Mm-hmm.
It's that really uncomfortable area where it's good enough. It could be
Mm-hmm.
better, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to turn it in and it's going to be okay. And when I get feedback, it's going to be not because I turned it in at the last minute to protect myself. It's going to be because I know I did B minus work and I'm ready
Mm-hmm.
for some feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so practicing doing that on purpose, intentionally, I'm going to give myself this much time and do it and be okay with it, and then learn from that, helps us to get out of that pattern if we think we have to do it perfectly, if we think we have to work on it forever. Um,
Right.
Other ways that we can do that are just take small steps. What is, if I think that, because some people don't procrastinate, they work on it maybe for weeks on end and shut everything else out of their lives. Some people take it to that extent.
Uh-huh.
I know a woman who has a C-suite job, and she really, that job takes, she says, I give 110%.
Mm.
And she does, but to the
Uh-huh.
detriment of other people.
Mhm.
There are people in her family. But again, it's protecting her maybe from some hard conversations in her family. So sometimes we give everything. And, that's the perfectionism. So what if we draw back in that case and say, I'm not going to give 110% because it's a job and there
Mhm.
are other parts of my life. I'm going to give 80% and see what that's like today. So just, back off a little bit. Maybe 80% is too much if you're given 110, but I'm an English professor, not a math professor.
Go for that A minus.
Yeah. Yeah. The point is to see that the world, this is all about your perception of how the world is judging you.
Right. That's a good
So
point.
what happens when I back off of that and see in a small way, okay, what happens?
Mhm.
Your biggest fears probably aren't going to be realized if you just back off a little. And so you
Absolutely.
take little steps back.
Yeah. And I also think too, it does kind of come back to your perception of of what is A minus, what is a B minus.
Yeah.
And um, you know, you've heard a lot, I would say probably in the last 5 to 10 years, depending on what circles you run in, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Just get the thing done. And what I found when I adopt that thought, I actually am a little bit more relaxed and I
Mhm.
do better work because I
Yes.
don't have that fear and that pressure, and I've just given myself permission. Okay, we're going to sit down for this amount of time. We're going to work on this, and whatever comes up is what comes up.
Yeah.
I'm doing some reading and studying about masculine and feminine energies right now,
Mhm.
and not men and women, but just the
Right.
energy you bring. And that masculine is very much striving and pushing. And I can think back into, just not as far back maybe to March, where I found myself just really stuck in my
Mhm.
business and stuck in my personal life in a lot of ways. And what it was, Sonia, was I had fallen back into some old patterns of just, like you said, given that 110%, where I'm sitting at that computer all day long and I'm
Yeah.
miserable. I'm not doing the things that I really and truly intended to do at this stage of my life. They're all out there
Mm.
waiting for someday later on.
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
Yeah. And how many of us, after sitting at a computer for 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, how many of us are really putting out anything that's very worthwhile at that point? Right? We're brain
No,
dead. So,
no, no.
yeah. Yeah,
I,
I
I, I would
agree.
I would add into that as well as just being self aware to know when those times you are the most productive
Yes.
and really blocking that time off to work. So,
Yes.
this is like a good time of day for
Absolutely.
me as far as productivity. But I know that if I get into too far and late in the afternoon, it's not going to go well. But here's the other thing I know is if I go and pick something up at 7:30 or 8, I'm going to just all of a sudden rear back up. And I very rarely will let myself do that anymore because that means I won't go to sleep at a decent hour, which throws the
Yeah.
next day off. So
Yeah.
knowing that and allowing myself to continue to kind of unwind because again,
Mhm.
I don't know that just because I'm rearing back up and I have a little bit of energy, I don't know how clear my brain really is at 8:30 at
Exactly.
night.
Yeah, energy and clarity are not the same things.
True. True.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
time, I won't let myself start cleaning the house either at 8:30 at night.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's not nearly as hard to talk myself out of, though.
I know, right? I know I should probably do this, but I'll get the kitchen counter clean. That's it.
Yeah,
So,
and I love what you say about awareness because it is so much about listening to ourselves. And perfectionists aren't trusting themselves. They're trusting what they think other people are thinking. And usually that's a very harsh judgment because they themselves are judging. So they're
Yeah.
really projecting their own thoughts onto other people, because I can't think of many people that, especially, when I was in a leadership position, where I'd look at them and say, you really need to be working harder. Can't you take this home and finish it at 10 o'clock at night? I mean, I would never ask them to do that, but I think I need to do that. So why am I holding myself to that standard? Why am I thinking other people are thinking those thoughts? It usually all comes from that lack of self-worth inside me.
Right. Oh, I
So
love
just
this.
be aware of that.
I love this. So we kind of delved into that a little bit last week as well, of like, what type of example are you setting when you're saying, okay, I want you guys over here to be rested and show up, and then, but I'm going to come home and I'm going to, bring half my work home with me. And
Yeah.
it's one of the things that I see in that too, is you kind of look like a martyr. And I've seen this with people that have worked for me in the past, where they almost, instead of gaining the respect of the rest of the team, they start to lose the respect because everyone else is like, I think she's just trying to get us to feel bad about ourselves, and make us feel guilty
Yeah.
because we watched the latest episode of whatever last night. So yeah. um
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's that being disingenuous, not
mhm.
being authentic again. If I have an ulterior motive, if I'm working because I want, I'm feeling like a martyr, I'm trying to build myself up, I'm not buying that, and neither are they.
That's so good.
It's true. I know that I'm not doing it for the betterment of the team. I know that I'm doing it to kind of stick it in their face and say, "Hey, I'm working harder than you," you know? And so again,
Mhm.
it's that judgment.
So, Sonia, I know that you work with high achieving women and help them move forward in their career and get out of these ruts of things like imposter syndrome and perfectionism. Can you share with us maybe some strategies that you use to help your clients continue to grow in their career and not be just bound by this?
Yeah, the first, we do take small steps.
Mhm,
The first place is just starting with that awareness piece. Getting
mhm,
them to actually spend some time understanding what their motives are, or maybe even before we understand what their motives are, how it feels in their bodies right now.
oh,
And we so many times we have emotions, but emotions are weakness, so we
mhm.
separate our bodies from our brains, and we only think, well, I should keep working, I've got to get this just right, and we don't stop and think about the toll that that is having on us. And that's why people who experience lots of perfectionism or imposter syndrome, that's why burnout rates are so high,
Mhm,
because they are not checking in with their bodies. So we start with just some small strategies for checking in, sitting still, saying, you know, uh, this is something that I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I'm not working hard enough. When I say that, what happens in my body? And it takes a little time to figure that out, because we're so used to just thinking instead of feeling, that we have to really learn to sit and feel those things. But
mhm.
if it's coming from an energizing place, then great. If it's creating positivity, great. But the truth is, most people wouldn't be coming to me if that's what it was
Yeah.
generating. It's generating,
Yeah.
negative feelings, lack of energy, a desire to change careers. You probably see a lot of that too with
Mhm.
people who are they're looking to change to solve all their problems by changing your career. But if you're dealing with perfectionism, that's going to hang on. It's not
Mm.
something that's going to change when you go to a different job. You're going to carry it with you. So, how can I identify that? What is it? And then we start working on some strategies to just make those very small changes. How can I, on this project, plan it, plan a specific amount of time, and then at the end of that, no matter what it is, be ready to turn that in and get feedback and understand that that's not a reflection of my self-worth.
Mhm.
It is
Yeah.
constructive criticism. So,
Yeah.
it sounds, in theory, it sounds easy, but it's these small steps that we take. It's a process. Um,
Right.
because
Right.
it's years of our culture ingrained in us.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like perfectionism and the striving are just a big source of burnout. And
Absolutely.
it's one of the things that I've seen, one of the things I've experienced personally, where it's just like, okay, I can't let this go and I can't step away from it. And so I'm just going to keep pushing. But meanwhile, I'm not happy and
Yeah.
I'm really burnt out.
And you're probably not producing anything really worthwhile.
That's
I,
true.
I mean, it is true. It's if we are, carrying this burden of perfectionism and trying to be better than what we think people are thinking about us, then we can't be our best. We can't produce our best work. We can't come up with our best ideas. We're going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
So, unburdening some of that can really be life changing. That's what I love to see when people start having that awareness, even that initial awareness that these are my thoughts. And this is because I have been trained this way for years. It's not really my fault. That can
Right.
be so empowering at times. You just see a huge shift in some people when they take off all of that shame and all of that
Yeah.
blame that they've been carrying around.
Right. Right, right. And that's like you said, it's so ingrained. I mean, even deep down into the subconscious level where you just really have
Absolutely.
to work on it. And it takes time to overcome. It's almost like a limiting beliefs that
Yes.
this is where what I have to do in order to be accepted or
Yeah.
um, for me to even accept myself as being good enough.
How many people have you seen who carry their perfectionism around like a badge of honor? Oh, I'm
It's
I'm a perfectionist. In fact, I do you ever see in interviews, you ask someone what their weakness is, and they're like, "Oh, my weakness is I'm a perfectionist."
uh-huh.
And they're using that because they want to impress you
Mhm.
because they think it's a good thing, really. But they know that it can be seen as they can use it as a weakness as well.
Sure, sure. And you know that just after having this conversation today, it's if I were still interviewing and screening people, these are questions I would want to dive deeper into to understand what do they mean by their perfectionism because it's kind of like you talked about at the beginning. It may not be bad,
It may be
but
healthy striving. It may just
you know,
be, yeah. But if it's something that really is limiting them,
mm-hmm.
then it's not a badge of honor.
No,
It's
it's
something
not.
that we've all earned one of those badges at some point. But let's
Mhm.
learn how to take that off and find who we are authentically, um, and what we can really do when we're not beating ourselves up.
Right, right. And it kind of goes back to that whole B minus or done is better than perfect
Yeah.
scenario where you go, okay, am I am I building something in the construction world where it has to be
Yeah.
perfect?
Or a
Or
surgeon performing a
yeah,
surgery.
yeah, exactly.
I want
A
my surgeon to
pilot.
be a perfectionist.
You can't be off just a millimeter,
No, no.
those things, there's that, but then there's, you know, uh, your boss has asked for a report. Well, you need to compile the main points and get the supporting evidence for that report and get it to them on time
Yeah.
and or early, even better.
Well, and the truth is that even jobs that require precision,
Hmm.
it's the mindset that goes into that.
Yes.
Perfectionism is not an end product, it's a
Uh-huh.
mindset.
Yeah. 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 And those people also have a skill that is easy for them
Right.
and maybe not for you and I. So that's a
Yeah,
lot of different ways to
absolutely.
look at that. So, well, this
Yeah.
has been really, really good, Sonia. Is there anything that you want to add to any of this?
I think, the main thing I want to encourage people to do is really start listening to your body, listening to your emotions, your feelings. If something feels heavy, if it feels like a burden, then you probably don't need to be carrying it around in your work because
Yeah.
it's keeping you from doing your best work and achieving your highest goals.
Hmm.
And the other thing is just mistakes are they are platforms for learning. If we
Yeah.
were all perfect, we would be really boring know-it-alls. It's the mistakes that set us up to be the interesting, educated people that we are. And if we could just, change that mindset, then it would give you so much more energy to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Mindset's just everything, isn't it?
All comes down to that.
It really is. So, Sonia, you are on LinkedIn and Instagram, both under your name, correct? Under
Yes,
Sonia
Sonia
Green.
Green Coaching, mhm,
Okay.
and Facebook. You can find me at any of those places. You can find me on my website at soniagreencoaching.com.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you for coming back. And I love this conversation. I know we could probably invest another 45 minutes into it easily because there's just so much, so much. And I love how it's tied
yeah.
into some other recent episodes that we've done here on this live stream as well. So I again want to thank you, and I want to remind our audience that I do work with mid and senior, as well as executive level professionals. One of the things that my team and I really help you with is LinkedIn branding, and just to kind of follow through on that theme of perfectionism. I know you guys. I know that some of you are like paralyzed trying to get that LinkedIn profile just perfect. And I don't want you to have to struggle with that. It is truly one of these works in progress. You need to get it done enough so that you can make yourself visible for the recruiters. And I've got a tool for you. So I'm going to drop it in the chat. I have a LinkedIn success blueprint that you can download for free. And I was trying to see, I might can also put up, yeah, I can put it on the screen. This is really going to help you guys overcome that perfectionism. You can just follow the checklist. It'll tell you what you need to do. I've got some videos connected to that, as well as some really good email support. So don't put off getting, if you are start getting ready to start your job search, this is really, LinkedIn is a great place for you to be. And hopefully that this checklist will help you get started. So download that on as soon as we get off here. So thank you so much for joining us. Next week, I have Bethany Wallace coming in to speak with us, and really excited. We're going to be talking about conflict in managing conflict in the workplace. So it's going to be a really great, interesting conversation. We're going to mix a little faith into that conversation as well. So hope that you guys will come back same time, and I will see you on our next video. We'll see y'all later.